So about 282,000 people watched this channel over the last 3 months. I'm sure most of you have a certain impression about me. I'm sure videos like I bought every guitar I ever wanted and this is what I learned also reinforce that impression. But let me show you something else. Let me show you a Facebook post that I made almost 10 years ago. Putting it up over here. Over the years, I have changed, but something else has stayed the same. Rather funny to be wishing a musical instrument, but happy 10th birthday to my trusty Epiphone Les Paul. The guitars that I've used in all my gigs and I will never sell. There's photos from 2004 to 2005 to 2015, and I've tagged all the bandmates that I've had over those 10 years. Now, today, this is the opposite of one of the previous videos I made when I talked about buying any guitar I ever wanted. Today, I'm going to tell you about how I only played one guitar, just one guitar, one electric guitar for 10 years, what it taught me. I said buying every guitar I ever wanted gave me a life lesson, but playing only one guitar for a decade gave me another lesson altogether. Hi everyone, welcome back to the Ministry of Guitar. My name is Utkarsh Mohan. I'm coming to you from Singapore. As always, if you like what I'm doing, please do like, subscribe and share. It really helps grow the audience, which is my number one motivation for doing this. Now, this is the second part in my series where I go through my entire guitar journey. I did part one last week. Now, we get to the second part and we find ourselves in 2005. April 2005, rather specifically April 30th, 2005. The reason I know this date is it is actually the birthday of my bandmate, my roommate at the time. And that was the day we went to buy a guitar. Both of us went to buy an electric guitar together. Both first electric guitars for both of us. If you recall from my previous video, I had been playing guitar for about 6 months at this point in time. I'd started in about October, November 2004. I had gotten myself a Gibson, not a Gibson, from India, a cheap kind of a guitar. Cheap as in cheap relative to the guitars that you know from the US, etc. For someone in India buying it, it was very expensive. And to me at the time, it was very expensive. So let's be clear on that particular aspect. So we go to this place in Singapore. It's a complex called Bras Basah complex. It's very close to the center of the city called City Hall. It's close to the iconic hotel called Raffles Hotel. But Bras Basah by itself is a mall that has character and also has a lot of affordable shops. We didn't go to one of those affordable shops. We went to the retailer who had been there for a very long time. The retailer still exists. It's called Sweely. And later, on a different video on the channel, I'm going to give you the story of this retailer, or rather where they are right now, who owns them, and how it's all interconnected with things that you wouldn't imagine, guitar.com, heritage guitars. I'll talk about that in a different video in the future. At this point in time, it's a guitar shop. We've all heard of it. So we go there. Now, I have my heart set on potentially buying a Fender Strat. I was hoping that I'd get a Fender made in Mexico kind of Strat. My budget was like nothing. Like I was, 500, 600 Singapore dollars, about 400 US dollars was like my budget. I was hoping maybe they have a discount or something. I go there. The Strats are, of course, 1,000 plus Singapore dollars, nowhere close to my budget. I also see two other guitars that I really like. The Epiphone Explorer, which is about 800 Singapore dollars, I think 850 or something. And then there's the most beautiful guitar I've ever seen, which is the Epiphone Firebird. There are a few future stories in my channel about how I finally got a Firebird. But at this point in time, the Firebird is close to 1,000 Singapore dollars. And that is a distant dream. Luckily, there's something that catches my eye at a budget that can catch my eye. Epiphone. They have an Epiphone Les Paul. Very similar. It looks very similar to the Guns N' Roses guitar. They have that. They have a special promotion of selling it with the hard case together for 600 Singapore dollars only. Normally, the hard case would have been like $100 or something. So maybe it was $750 usually. Now it's like 600. So that turns out to be the only choice because I can't afford even the Epiphone means that I have to make some compromises. Of course, I've taken money from my parents at this point in time, but I have to also make some compromises to my own. I have a very limited stipend as a student in Singapore, taking a loan, etc. So Epiphone Les Paul makes sense. I was certain I wanted something that looked like Slash's guitar from November Rain. Remember, this is 2005. So I've seen the video because we've downloaded it on our computers, but I don't remember what it exactly looks like. And so there are a few options: tobacco burst, tea burst, honey burst. For some reason, I think it's honey burst. So I buy the honey burst one. Turns out tobacco burst is a Slash color, but anyways, doesn't matter. So that's it. That's the guitar, and it's an amazing guitar. I had started my guitar playing journey, or rather guitar learning journey, but I would say 6 months in, I was just about okay. I could strum a few chords. Over the next, I would say, a year or so, my progress on the guitar accelerates at a tremendous rate. It accelerates at the rate that I'm suddenly able to play guitar solos. I'm not saying I'm playing them very well, but I can play them. I'm very motivated. I'm also not spending too much time studying. I'm spending most of my time playing guitar, just about going through the stuff. For a lot of us, and this is another separate thing from the guitar topic. In India, to get into a good university, I know I'm in Singapore, but in India, to get into a good university, you have to struggle through your high school years. There's no such thing as a romance of high school and all of that. Nothing. It's a horrible grind. So what happens is that a lot of people who studied really, really hard, no choice because that's how you get somewhere in life from a country like India. At that point in time, today there are a lot more opportunities. They kind of rebel in a way. And I guess just playing guitar and not focusing so much on studies was my way of not rebelling, but kind of taking it easy, because the previous 2 years, age 16 to 18, had just been going to school. You have normal school, which is, I was in a school that really made you study hard. Then you had to go for a special class to study for a competitive exam. That was 3 hours after school every day, including Saturdays and Sundays where you don't have school, but you have the special class for 6 to 7 hours a day. And then your summer holidays and winter holidays are the special class, just in order to get into a certain university called IIT. If you look up India and you will find out this entire industry about helping people get into IIT, because when people get into IIT, etc., the traditional thing was, and it's rather true, that's kind of springboard for many, many things. And if you see a lot of people today who are very successful in the world, the CEOs of Alphabet, CEOs of Microsoft, all the great Indian origin CEOs that you can think of, they've all had a path like that. So you can imagine why it's very aspirational, why so many people try. So after that entire period of just studying like crazy, university was my time to kind of take it easy. And that's when I started playing guitar. And that's when the Epiphone Les Paul was really my partner. So fast forward a year, from April 2005 to April 2006. I have gotten good enough to say that, hey, we should start a band. The problem is I need band members. I have my roommate, which I told you, who already plays guitar. So we have another guitarist. I have a guy who can play anything and sing. So he says, okay, I can do whatever is required. But we still needed a drummer. So I actually convinced my friend to learn how to play drums. And what he did is he learned it pretty fast. He actually learned it over the summer. I guess when you're 18, 19 years old, you learn things really fast. So he learned drums over the summer. And then he actually bought a drum kit. And there's a long story here, but we actually found ourselves, I've talked about this in another video where how guitar helped me. But what we did is every hostel in university needed to have a band, an official band. And we managed to convince them to let us be the official band, never mind that we don't have too much experience. So that we did, maybe convincing skills here, whatever else you could attribute it to. And the other good thing with that is that helped guarantee us a room in the hostel, because what happens in my particular university was that you were not guaranteed a room in the campus. And if you didn't get a room, you had to do a lot of extracurricular activities. And if you didn't get a room on campus, living would be like 2x more expensive because your rent would be like 3 times higher, so on and so forth. Long story short, we establish a band. We have our first gig. It goes rather well. We play 3 songs, Comfortably Numb. Yes, that is kind of the aspirations that we had. Comfortably Numb in your first gig. Paranoid. Was it Paranoid? Yes, it was Paranoid. And Wake Me Up When September Ends by Green Day. That's the first gig. Goes really well. We get asked to play more gigs. Then we play more gigs in the main area of the university. That was what was it? The main canteen. We played songs like more Black Sabbath songs, more some Pearl Jam songs, and we played a huge gig where we played Pink Floyd Time. We played Fade to Black by Metallica. So very, very ambitious. I'm not saying we played it very, very well, but we were playing it. Yeah, that's where it started. The whole thing ended in a little bit of a disaster because and you learn a lot over the years, but we had a particular gig where we were not allowed to do a sound check, and that kind of led to a disaster. But after university, I mean, and the other thing that I did in university that I wanted to mention, sorry, I keep getting interrupted by some strange sounds. Where was I? So yes, the other thing that I did in university was also write immense boatload of songs, probably about 100. And what I realized is when I had this Epiphone Les Paul, whether it was playing gigs, whether it was learning songs, whether it was writing, it did everything. I had no preconception that it's a humbucker guitar, not a single coil. I had no idea. I had no preconception that this is a certain. I mean, I could somehow, maybe my ears were not advanced, but I never felt that functionally there was ever a gap. I never felt there was any gap. I knew I didn't have a tremolo, so I couldn't do some of those tremolo things, but I never felt any gap. It was just functionally fine. And it continued because after university, once we started working, all the folks from our rival universities, we ended up working in the same place. We started another band. Just use the guitar for everything, all the gigs, all the practice sessions. I never felt any gap. I played everything from Red Hot Chili Peppers to Metallica to Pearl Jam to what else can I think of? Nirvana, something more modern like what am I thinking of right now? Seven Nation Army just came to my mind. Green Day to 60s Beatles stuff, everything. It covered it. I never felt any gap. Now, I knew that it sounded different. It sounded different to my bandmate, the other bandmate who at that time had a Strat. But that was okay. Everybody still had fun. We still had a great show. Nothing ever, I had no problem. And the guitar itself was fine. It did give me a couple of issues. One during a gig in university and one another time where one of the humbuckers failed or something happened. I ended up replacing the humbuckers. But at the time when I replaced the humbuckers, I had no idea. I literally went to the shop and said, what is the cheapest thing that you can give me? And I just swapped it with that, and that's it. And it worked. It sounded the same. So what I'm trying to tell you here is this entire ecosystem that we have of gas, and I've talked about my journey about why I got into this ecosystem, is entirely, I'm not saying that there aren't differences in the way guitars sound, how they make you feel, how they do that. Of course, I believe in it. Look at stuff behind me. But functionally, as a musician trying to make music, trying to play music, trying to just have fun, any guitar is fine and it will do everything. Even if it is a relatively affordable guitar, you do not need anything more than a functioning guitar. I mean, it should function. You should be able to play. And honestly, even my Epiphone, the higher frets, I would say, weren't that functional because it was very difficult to bend anything beyond 17, 18. I've talked about this in the problems with Epiphone. Many don't tell you about. Right? It was, so you could say my guitar was 99% functional. But that was all that was ever needed. And that is the key thing I always remind myself, right? Even though I enjoy having all of these toys, this collection, it has a certain value, blah, blah, blah. I've experienced everything, I've learned, I've seen the end of material desire. I talked about all of this. The main reminder to me is that a guitar is a guitar. That is all you need. If you want to play music, if you have the spirit of music inside you, you just need one guitar and it'll do everything. And I'm so glad that for 10 years I could not afford anything else, because not that I couldn't have maybe bought a Gibson a few years into working, but I had other priorities, student loans, getting a house, down payment for a house, etc., like life priorities. So I never, till 2005 to 2015, I never had the chance to buy anything more than this, because I could never fathom spending like $1,000, $2,000 on something I didn't need, because I already had a guitar. And then once the main things were taken care of, student loan was sorted, house down payment was taken care of, etc., and I started having a lot more disposable income, that's when all these extras and all these toys came in. But remember, the key word here is extra. Anything that you have beyond a guitar and maybe a backup, which you can share also with your bandmate if you need to, as I did it many times during earlier gigs, anything beyond one guitar, it's all extra. So next time you feel sad that you can't get a guitar you want, or you feel tremendous gas and you miss out on something, or anything that happens where you try to get more than one guitar, just remember, it's all extra. All you need is just one thing. Okay, I hope this was helpful. I'll see you next time.